Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to CarAudioFabrication. I am currently, once again, here at one of my favorite shops, SoundzPlus. Now, if you guys have been following the channel, a couple months ago around SEMA time, I actually worked on 2 different projects with SoundzPlus and did some of the fabrication work. I helped build this Toyota Supra and also helped them build the downfiring subwoofer enclosure under the seat of this Ford F-150. So what are we doing today? Well, we need to come up with a plan because you saw the thumbnail. We are working on a smart car demo build. Here's the smart car behind me. We're definitely going to be taking a closer look as we come up with this plan. But just so you guys know, Marty currently has been using the smart car as kind of like a customer loaner vehicle. That way, when he's working on their vehicle, they can take it and it's not a big deal for them to drive around and run some errands while the shop is doing the work. But up until now, this really hasn't had that great of a sound system. And why not? You want to show off what your shop can do radio-wise, what you can do with digital signal processors and sound quality. So the goal here is going to be a really small system. I mean, after all, it is a smart car that is efficient and can get great sound, and to demonstrate the power, like I mentioned, of DSP. Now we have a box of goodies here that we're going to go through so you guys can see some of the gear that's planned for this build, but let's talk about some of the design challenges. First off, you would think, okay, it's a small car, it's gonna be easy because, well, it's small and simple, but because it is so small, there are definitely some things in the way. For instance, we were thinking about putting the amplifiers and processor here and doing a really cool trim panel, but the problem is that if we pull this up, this is actually where the engine is in the smart car. This panel here that you see, the black panel, that needs to be removed in order to do oil changes and to access the engine. So if we did build anything up above here, it would have to be on either some kind of hinge or it would have to be easily removable from the vehicle. We need to decide if we want to use that area, or there also happens to be these nice little cubbies on each side. In the back, we also know that we want to add a subwoofer. Conveniently enough, for that, there is this nice storage compartment. Perhaps we'll do some fiberglassing and build the subwoofer into this panel. Up front from the factory, this is currently the only speaker location right here down in the door. But if we truly want to have great sound, we might want to do either a 2-way or a 3-way type system with a component tweeter and a component mid-range. We'll see what we end up doing there, but we're going to need some sort of location up in the top of the vehicle. The head unit install should be simple enough. You can see that there's currently just a normal double DIN one. You guys will see what we have planned there. So as far as the rear amplifier and DSP install goes and subwoofer that I'll be focusing on, we definitely have some challenges. Let's take a look at the gear that we've picked so far for this build, and definitely stay tuned until the end of the video because I have some exciting news for where this car is actually going to be shown off. Our first piece of gear here is the AudioControl DM-608 digital signal processor. Why is it called a 608? Well, it gives us 6 channels of input and 8 channels of output. And if you don't know what a digital signal processor is, this bad boy right here, it allows us to control the crossovers, it allows us to control the EQ and time alignment for every output channel. It can also control levels. It allows us to have a high level input or a low level input. The point of this here is it truly allows us to have full control get it, audio control of the sound. If you were integrating with a factory system, you could use the high level connections which connect to your speaker level inputs in order to integrate with the factory system. But in our case, we're going to be using an aftermarket head unit, so we will be using the low level inputs. And then we of course will have the low level outputs going to the amplifiers we're using. The AudioControl DSPs also have this option port. We're going to be using this piece here. This is the AudioControl AC-BT24. This little device here is a high resolution low latency audio streamer. It also gives us the ability to tune the DSP with a wireless program on our cell phone or on our tablet. It's simple enough, just plugs in right here, and that will give us that added functionality. Another thing we'll be connected to the DSP is we want this remote level control. This will allow us to change our tunes. We can actually have up to 4 different tunes and we can select them with this controller, and it also works as a level adjustment knob. And when we're tuning the DSP, we can tell this knob what it is actually going to control. So we'll probably use it as a subwoofer level control, but we could also use it as a master volume control if we needed to. In systems where we're integrating with the factory radio or amplifier, it is helpful to use this as a master volume knob because we can leave the factory system turned up to its max undistorted volume. And this is a good tidbit of information. A lot of times what the OEM manufacturers will do is they'll have the EQ actually change on the factory system as you turn it up or down. So by locking in and using a consistent volume, we can avoid that and then use this for our volume control. So the first of the two amplifiers that we're using for this project is the ACM-1.300. The one stands for mono. This is a single channel amplifier that we'll be using for the subwoofer. It gives us 175 watts at 4 ohms or 300 watts at 2 ohms. On top here is this cover plate that we can remove, and just so you guys know, this is actually reversible, which is really nice if you had to have the wiring going a different way in the install. That way the lettering isn't upside down. And once we remove the panel, you can see that this amp has some factory integration options with high-level inputs here, low-level inputs here that we'll of course be using out of the DM608, and then things that are pretty standard: crossover control, gain control. This does have AccuBass built in, which is AudioControl's solution for bringing back the bass that a factory system rolls off. But the main reason we're going with this ACM series of amps in this form factor is, well, they're micro, they're really small, and you can see they actually have the same form factor width-wise as the DSP. So that's our one channel. We also need to look at our 4-channel here. It's pretty much the same amplifier, same total power output, but we of course have 4 inputs, 4 outputs. And again, because those plates can be switched around, we can have this amplifier in this orientation, and you can see that that gives us this same form factor. In fact, if we take off this cover plate, they also sent us this cover plate to use because this is basically a 5-channel amplifier now, and it covers this full package. 4 channels for speakers, 1 for the sub, and it's all DSP controlled. Now, AudioControl does have a 5-channel amplifier that's going to be coming out soon, the LC-5.1300 and the D-5.1300. Why not use that 5-channel amplifier? Because the D version has the DSP built in. Why not use that instead? Well, number one, the current time right now that we are making this video and doing this project, that amplifier is not released yet. And secondly, it's a much bigger amplifier package. By having these broken down into separate pieces, we can easily locate them in different locations within this vehicle with the very small space. The other really important thing that's worth noting about this combination of items is, since this is an 8-channel output DSP, we do have some flexibility for additional system options in the future. If we did want to add another 2 channels to make it a 3-way system up front, we could, and we would still have another 2 channels to use for a total of 8 channels. We also gain the ability to use an optical input if we ever needed to, along with a coax digital input. I wanted to go over all of this with you guys, that way you fully understand why we picked each of these items. I'm now going to use this plate to bolt these 2 amplifiers together, that way we can get more of an idea size-wise where these should go in the vehicle and develop some plans for our fabrication. So here's kind of the layout that we're thinking so far. We were thinking about putting the processor or amplifiers over here and then vice versa on the other side, but the problem is on the other side here, this is one piece panel, like you can't take that part apart, and then there's also a huge wiring harness back there that could potentially radiate noise. There's not a whole lot of depth. After all, this is intended to be a show car that we can show off AudioControl's gear, and by building here, I could do a lot more with my insert shapes, a little bit more design features, and have it match the subwoofer enclosure that we'll be adding. So I'm not going to probably use this plate. We'll probably do 2 separate amplifiers for the symmetry, but now you know that you could use that plate if you were doing more of a simple install. This is Marty, the owner of SoundzPlus, helping me out. Hey, so we're pushing this back so we can get an idea of what's underneath and what we need to do for our mounting points. Luckily, we have a couple of factory mounting points that we checked out that we can use. So, and we do need to engineer a plan, like I said, so that we can access this, but we'll figure that out later in the build. It's kind of funny, the smart car, that's the access for the engine and changing your oil. Everything is compact. I accidentally turned off my microphone in this video clip here, but I also wanted to show this rear area that I was mentioning for the subwoofer. This is the subwoofer that we're planning on using. It's a nice shallow mount sub and a sealed enclosure. We'll be doing some fiberglass process on this. So the exciting news here is that the plan is to have this car in the AudioControl booth at the Knowledge Fest event in Indianapolis. A special thanks to AudioControl for being a monthly channel sponsor and of course being a sponsor of this build. I'm excited to work on this, and in the next videos I'm going to be showing you guys, of course, the full build process. A special thanks to Lonnie, Ali, William, Marco, Steve, Emmanuel, Jerry, and the rest of the Patreon membership team. A big thanks to all those guys for making these videos possible. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check out the other related videos here on screen, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.